They mocked me at dinner, but they didn't know who was listening. The words, light as air yet weighted with years of unspoken judgment, drifted across the heavy oak table. My brother, Daniel, ever the pragmatist, was lamenting my unconventional career path, his voice laced with that familiar blend of pity and superiority. Still with that little online venture, Sarah? I keep thinking you'll want something more stable, something with a real future. His wife, Amelia, nodded in sympathetic agreement, her perfectly manicured nails tapping a gentle rhythm on her wine glass. Clara, my sister, chimed in, her tone a little sharper, a little more direct. Honestly, Sarah, we worry. All that talent, and you're just, well, it seems like you're treading water. Laughter, polite and thin, clinked against the expensive silverware, mingling with the scent of rosemary and roasted lamb. I kept my gaze fixed on my plate, a slightly chipped ceramic that had seen better days, much like I sometimes felt myself. The pattern was faded, the once vibrant blue now a muted gray. I traced the faint outline of a flower with my fork, the tines catching in a nearly invisible crack. Swallowing. That was the key. Swallow the words, the implications, the casual disregard for the life I'd so carefully, so painstakingly built. Play along. Smile. Nod. Offer a non-committal murmur. It was a dance I'd perfected over decades of family gatherings. A familiar ache settled in my chest, a dull throb of feeling unseen, unheard. It wasn't that they were intentionally cruel, not always. They simply operated from a different worldview, one where success was measured in promotions, property portfolios, and the kind of stability that often came at the cost of something far more precious to me. Time. Time with Leo. My son Leo. He sat beside me, a quiet island in the turbulent waters of adult conversation. His dark hair fell across his forehead, mirroring his father's, a man long gone, but whose features still echoed in our boy. Leo's fork was paused mid-air, a piece of roasted potato hovering precariously. He wasn't looking at his plate, or at me. His gaze, steady and unervingly perceptive for a 12-year-old, was fixed on Daniel, then Clara. He was absorbing it all, his small shoulders tensing almost imperceptibly. I saw the slight furrow in his brow, the tightening of his lips. He was preparing, I sensed, though for what, I couldn't yet fathom. A knot of apprehension tightened in my stomach. Please, Leo, don't, I thought, a silent plea. Don't make it worse. Don't draw their fire. The conversation meandered, but the undercurrent remained. My mother, bless her, tried to steer it towards neutral territory, asking about Leo's school, his upcoming soccer tournament. But even her well-intentioned queries felt tinged with a subtle pressure, an unspoken hope that perhaps he would achieve the conventional success that had eluded me. It's just. I had such hopes, my mother sighed, her voice soft, directed more at the flickering candles in the center of the table than at me. That scholarship you won, Sarah, you could have done anything. Asterisk anything. Asterisk the word hung there, a ghost of possibilities foregone. I remembered that scholarship, the elation, the dreams that had felt so vast, so limitless then. And I remembered the moment, years later, when Leo's father had walked out, leaving behind a shattered life and a scared little boy with wide, questioning eyes. The dreams hadn't died, they had simply reconfigured. They had narrowed, sharpened, focused into a single, unwavering point. Leo. A memory surfaced, unbidden, as Clara recounted her recent promotion and the accompanying bonus that allowed for a lavish kitchen renovation. It was a cold Tuesday night, years ago. Leo, barely 6, had a raging fever. The cheap thermometer I owned had broken, and I didn't have the money for a new one, not until payday, which was 3 days away. The rent was due, the electricity bill was looming. I remembered bundling him up, his small body limp and hot against mine, and walking the 12 blocks to the 24-hour pharmacy in the biting wind because the car, old and unreliable, wouldn't start. I'd bought the expensive digital thermometer and a bottle of children's ibuprofen, counting out the coins, my stomach churning with anxiety about the days ahead. Walking back, the wind bit at my cheeks, tears freezing on my lashes, but Leo had snuggled closer, his small, feverish hand clutching mine. You're warm, Mommy, he'd mumbled, his voice raspy. That warmth, his dependence, it was everything. The stable career they envisioned wouldn't have understood that walk, that desperation, that fierce, protective love that outweighed any ambition. My online venture, the little thing Daniel dismissed, had started in those stolen hours after Leo was asleep. I taught myself web design, marketing, customer service, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unshakable resolve. It wasn't glamorous. Some months were terrifyingly lean. But it allowed me to be there, for school pickups, for sick days, for the quiet moments when he just needed to talk. It allowed me to volunteer at the school library, to chaperone field trips, to be the constant in his often turbulent young life. "In the hours you keep," Daniel continued, shaking his head with a feigned concern that felt more like judgment. "It can't be good for Leo, either. All that unpredictability. Unpredictability." I thought of the countless nights I'd sat at the kitchen table, long after Leo was asleep, the glow of my laptop screen the only light in the quiet house. I'd be working on orders for my shop, or tackling freelance writing assignments, the second, sometimes third, job they knew nothing about. The jobs that kept the lights on, that paid for soccer cleats and school supplies, that ensured Leo never felt the sting of true deprivation I sometimes feared. I remembered one particular night. Leo had a terrible nightmare. He'd stumbled into the kitchen, eyes wide with lingering fear, and I'd simply closed the laptop, pulled him onto my lap, and held him until his breathing evened out and he drifted back to sleep against my shoulder. My deadline had suffered, but his peace had been paramount. Was that the kind of unpredictability Daniel meant? The emotional weariness of it all was a heavy cloak. Year after year, these dinners. Year after year, the same gentle dismissals, the same subtle condescension. It chipped away at me, this feeling of being perpetually misunderstood, my sacrifices rendered invisible, my choices devalued. A part of me, the part that still remembered the bright-eyed girl with the scholarship, felt a pang of something akin to shame, a whisper of doubt. Were they right? Had I settled? Had I failed? But then I'd look at Leo, at the bright, kind, resilient boy he was becoming, and the doubt would recede, replaced by a quiet, fierce certainty. Suddenly, a small sound cut through the polite murmur. The clink of a fork against a ceramic plate. Not dropped, but set down. Deliberately. Leo. He looked up, his gaze sweeping across the faces at the table. Daniel, Amelia, Clara, my mother. His expression was serious, his small jaw set. My breath caught in my throat. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Oh, Leo, please." Star. "Excuse me," he said, his voice small. Yes, but astonishingly steady. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made the ambient chatter falter and die. Every head turned towards him. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows, making their surprised expression stark. Daniel's fork, laden with lamb, paused halfway to his mouth. Clara's perfectly arched eyebrow lifted. My mother's hand went to her throat. I wanted to reach out, to gently press his arm, to whisper, "It's okay, sweetie, let it go." But something in his posture, in the unwavering clarity of his gaze, stopped me. He wasn't being petulant or childish. There was a solemnity about him, a profound sense of purpose. "You talk about Mom's job," he began, his eyes finding Daniel's. "But you don't know that she sometimes works after I go to bed, really late, so she can pay for my soccer camp. She helps me with my homework every single night, even when she's super tired from her other work." My breath hitched. Her other work. He knew. Of course, he knew. Children see more than we credit them for. He turned to Clara. "And you said she's treading water. But Mom gave up a big job offer a few years ago. A really good one. She told me about it once. She said it would have meant moving, and she didn't want to pull me out of school when I was having a hard time making friends after Dad left." A silence, thick and absolute, descended upon the room. It wasn't the uncomfortable silence of a social misstep. It was something deeper, more profound. It was the silence of dawning awareness. I could feel the heat rising in my own cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and a fierce, overwhelming surge of love for this incredible boy. "She reads to me," Leo continued, his voice gaining a quiet confidence, "even though I'm too old for it, because she knows I like it. When I was sick last winter, she stayed up with me all night, just holding my hand and putting cool cloths on my forehead. She makes my lunch every day, and she always puts a note in it, even if it's just a smiley face." He looked at my mother then, his expression softening slightly. "Grandma, Mom uses her talent all the time. She helps me understand my history lessons, and she can draw anything. She taught me how to be kind, even when other people aren't being kind to us." His gaze flickered towards his aunt and uncle, a subtle but unmistakable point. He paused, took a small breath, and then delivered his quietest, most powerful words. "She does all of that because she loves me. And her job, the one you call little, lets her do it. It lets her be here. For me. And that's not treading water. That's everything. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't accusatory or judgmental. It was heavy with revelation. Daniel slowly lowered his fork to his plate, the food untouched. The clink of metal on ceramic was unnaturally loud in the stillness. Amelia stared at her lap, her composure slightly undone. Clara's expression was unreadable, her gaze fixed on the centerpiece, a bouquet of lilies whose scent now seemed almost funereal. My mother looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I saw not pity, not disappointment, but a flicker of something else. Understanding? Respect? I couldn't be sure. No one spoke. The air was thick with the unspoken, with years of assumptions suddenly challenged, perspectives irrevocably shifted. Leo didn't look triumphant, merely honest. He picked up his own fork again, as if he'd simply stated a series of incontrovertible facts, and took a bite of potato. The normalcy of the action was almost jarring. Slowly, the spell began to break. Daniel cleared his throat, a rough, uncertain sound. Well, Leo, he began, then stopped, apparently unsure how to continue. He picked up his wine glass, took a long sip, and then set it down with a decisive thud. He didn't meet my eye. Clara fiddled with her napkin. After a moment, she murmured, "The lamb is very good, Sarah." It was a non sequitur, a grasping for normalcy, but her voice lacked its usual confident edge. It was softer, almost hesitant. My mother reached across the table, her hand covering mine briefly. Her touch was light, tentative. "He's a good boy, Sarah," she whispered, her voice thick with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Was it guilt? Perhaps. But more than that, I sensed a genuine, perhaps painful, recalibration of her perception of me, of my life. Under the table, hidden from view, Leo's small hand found mine. He didn't squeeze it, just rested it there, a silent anchor. I looked at him, at his earnest face, still so young, yet filled with such profound wisdom and loyalty. A single tear escaped my eye, tracing a warm path down my cheek. Not a tear of sadness, or even of vindication. It was a tear of overwhelming gratitude, of a love so immense it filled every crack, every faded pattern of my life, making it whole, vibrant, and deeply meaningful. He had seen me. All along, he had seen me. And now, because of him, perhaps they had too. They mocked me at dinner, but he reminded them who I am.